Hey, everybody, appreciate you jumping on board for this latest edition of Gun on One. It is powered by the Inside the Birds Network and sponsored by my Bookie. I'm Derrick Gunn. A topic that has become commonplace in our society today, mental health issues, is a topic that a lot of people a long time ago were afraid to talk about, too, too afraid to admit that they were dealing with, felt it made them weak. And it kept a lot of things within them. And unfortunately, it led to more wrong than good. But in recent years, with more prominent figures stepping forward, athletes, entertainers, politicians, public figures in general, admitting that they were dealing with the likes of depression and anxiety, it has opened a floodgate of people who are now feeling comfortable about admitting that they're dealing with it and seeking help, which is the most important thing. My guest today is one of those guys who went through this, who goes through this in terms of dealing with depression and anxiety. He is Eagles' former first-round pick, Marcus Smith. And Marcus, it's been a long time since we've had a chance to chat, man, and it's so good to see you. How you doing, man?
Man, it's good to see you, Derek. It's been a long journey, but I am doing pretty well. Some days are better than others, but
Mhm.
that's how life is. And I'm just happy with where I am when it comes to mental health and what we're trying to do as a company to help our brothers and sisters, man.
Now, because of what you were dealing with, you started the Circle of M nonprofit organization to bring awareness to mental health challenges within the sports community. So, with that said, let's go back to the beginning when your sports career began, and which leads us into how it meshes with your nonprofit organization. So, the first thing I have to ask you is you are a former first round pick of the Philadelphia Eagles in 2014. You spent 3 years with the Eagles, but you only spent 5 years in the NFL total. Um, it led you to speak out about what you were going through in terms of dealing with depression and anxiety. How far back does it go that you have been going through this struggle?
Man, so for me, where it really started happening was after I got drafted. I had
Mm,
some spurts when I was younger with anxiety and depression, but see, when you are young and you can just play and not have to really worry about too much of anything, you can kind of mask those feelings, right?
mhm,
I seen my parents do the same thing. From the communities that we come from, we just don't talk about our issues, right? We keep them suppressed. So thinking about being a first round draft pick, obviously there is a lot of expectations, a lot of pressure, some pressure that I didn't realize that I was going to have within myself, but there's added pressure, right? If I would have been taking care of my mental health before, maybe it wouldn't have been as much added pressure and I could push through, right? And so, I did push through as well. But obviously, you guys seen me. I didn't play as well that first year, and I really didn't even play that much, right?
mhm.
And it wasn't until I started going on more and more in my career that I started to feel more and more depressed and
Mm.
more of a feeling of anxiety just because of not addressing those issues.
Did you feel like you couldn't talk about it to anybody? Did you try to even reach out to anybody in the Eagles organization to talk about what you were going through?
No, I wouldn't reach out to anybody. I would talk to BG sometimes about how to play, how things were going in the league, and he would give me great advice, one step in front of the other. But as far as clinically, I wasn't talking to anybody. It was some things that I just hadn't addressed
Mm,
up to that point that was very important for me to do so in order to find out who the real Marcus Smith was, right?
mm,
Think about being the first one in my family to ever make it that far. So it wasn't too many people that I could go to that I could talk to about it, right? And then sometimes we're in the locker room and a lot of guys are hurting in the locker room, right?
mm,
Mentally. But you're not gonna go to the next guy and tell them your weakness, right? Because we just feel like that weakness is used against us, whether it's in practice, on the field,
mm,
or upstairs. right? And so I never wanted anybody to think that I was mentally weak or not ready to play because I already had a target on my back. I already wasn't playing well. I already, there were things like, oh, he needs to get better. He needs to do this better. His body needs to get stronger. All those things, right? So I wasn't going to go to them and add anything else where they already think about me. So I was just trying to push that process through and change the perspective of
Yeah.
what people thought about me rather than, okay, who am I? And I know that I'm great and
Mm.
push forward for that instead of pushing forward for someone else or what they want me to do.
So you were a first round pick, making good money. I'm sure you had a lot of people coming out of the woodwork with their hands out, asking for $1. The aspect of I have to succeed because I was one of the first 32 players taken in a draft. And then on top of that, you're drafted in a highly visible and highly critical market like Philadelphia. So when you couple in the Philadelphia media and the Philadelphia fan base, and it was like all raining down on you at once, how much did that even make you feel restricted even more so?
Yeah, it was a lot. I'm not gonna lie, it was a lot. Back then, I didn't really say that it was because I wanted to appear like, yo, I
Mhm.
got this. I got this handle. It's strong. I wasn't the Jalen Hurts, right? Jalen, he can brush it off. He has the mentality. He has the warrior spirit, right? For me, it was more so I didn't know what to expect. I have never seen this before. This is something different. It's almost like a culture shock to me. The fans were so passionate to the point where like, yo, if you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, you don't need to be on this team or you get bashed about it. So I didn't have the thick skin. Now I would say Philadelphia helped me develop that thick skin. It helped me develop some type of a form of like, okay, I need to just focus on what I need to do to get better. But even still, like doing that within yourself is a
Mhm.
lot, right? If you don't actually go seek the help, right? Like Lane Johnson may have said, or Brandon Brooks, right? These are guys that I actually seen. I seen Brandon Brooks have anxiety attacks or didn't play in games. I think it was like 2 games, 2016 maybe,
Yeah.
where he didn't play because of mental health reasons. So I seen that, but I still wasn't talking then, right? It
Mm.
wasn't a push for me to be like because I seen how the coaches reacted when he wasn't playing because it was more so about I need him on the field. I need him to. We got to win this game. That's what the focus is. But sometimes we have to bring the layer back, right?
Mm.
We have to bring that back and look at the player as a human being, as a person, right? Because if they take care of their mental health first, they could be the best player that they can possibly be. Period.
Yep. You wrote in the Players Tribune that you came oh so close to committing suicide when you were with the Seattle Seahawks. Take me back to that moment and what led you to even think about the possibility of committing suicide?
Man, Derek, the crazy part about that is
Yeah.
my career was actually going in the right direction. Right?
Mm.
I left the Eagles. There was a point in time where I got back with my D-line coach from Louisville. I had an okay year my fourth year. I got the opportunity to play in Seattle, obviously, because Cliff Averill went down. So I really got the opportunity to play. And so I actually contemplated quitting that year because of my depression. My depression was so heavy that I wanted to quit even my fourth year and be done. But I ended up sticking it out. And then that following year, it was the same thing. I couldn't get over those things. I needed something and I didn't know what it was. So, me feeling very depressed and not feeling like I was the person, even if everybody was telling me, bro, you're doing great. Your career is going in the right direction. I had just signed a $2.7 million deal with the Seahawks, right? It was a 1 year deal, but hey, they had some sort of belief in me from what I did the previous year. So I was kind of happy with that, but there was still something that was tugging on me that I had never addressed. And because my depression had got so far, it was one morning in August where I was just like, I'm tired of this feeling. Like, what is this feeling? I didn't know what it was. I couldn't even put a name to the depression. And if somebody was to put depression on the board, I would say, no, that's not me. In
Mm.
denial. So when I was driving, I go to the facility every morning. I'm driving to the facility and I'm literally turning my wheel to go off of this it's almost like a cliff on the side where there are rocks and things of that nature. And by the time I pull that way, my wife calls me, I jerk the car back out of
Wow.
frustration because I'm wanting to hurt myself. I'm wanting to do something to end pain that I don't really know or can articulate what it is, right? And so I try to do it again, and my mother-in-law calls me. And by the time my mother-in-law is done talking to me, I'm at the bottom of the hill, like close to the Seattle Seahawks facility.
Mhm.
So at that point, I'm like, what in the heck did I just try to do? That's when it all like clicked, like, okay, something is really wrong with me because I've never been at this point before. It seems like my career is going in the right direction, but why am I not still happy? Why am I trying to get rid of some pain that I've been dealing with ever since I was in Philly?
Mhm.
So after that point, that's when I really decided to say, hey man, I need help. And I went to Pete Carroll and Coach Hurt, who is the defensive coordinator for the Seattle Seahawks right now. And that's what I told them. I said, football can wait. Football can wait.
Mm.
And my mental health is more important. So when people seeing me get released, that's what it was for. But it was really Pete Carroll really took care of me by releasing me because I had just signed a contract with them. I had just got money from them, a signing bonus from them, right? And in order for me to keep my signing bonus, he would have had to release me
Mm.
because I would have had to give money back. So he really and truly took care of me. So like, hey, you go do what you need to do to get your mental health straight. We're gonna be here for you. We're gonna support you.
Wow. Had you had suicidal thoughts at any other time before that?
I did, but it wasn't as strong as it was that day. Like it would cross my mind, but you know how any you could say a drug addict, right?
Yeah.
They may not realize that they really have a problem. They may think twice about it, but it's not really heavy on their hearts. It's not until you get to a point where you can't take it anymore. You think about your whole entire life. You think about all the things that you've gone through. May have been traumatic events that you have never talked about, that you never released out of your mouth
Mm.
to talk to someone about, right? Those things hold on to you. So all of those things plus added pressure of me not being uh the first round draft pick that everybody wanted or not living up to the expectations of my coaches, my fans, or my teammates. Then you also have family who I was getting asked for something probably every day by somebody different,
Mm.
right? So I couldn't really even focus on my career my first year like how I would want. So you think about all that compiled into one. Now I think I'm going in the right direction, but God is telling me, no, you got to address this. And I need you to be here to address this for other players.
Mm. My goodness. When you think about how long you had been dealing with depression and anxiety, how much did that affect your confidence and your production on the field for that matter?
It definitely weighed on me with my confidence on the field. Period. I mean, that's the only way that I could put it. And there were some games where I did better than I did in other games, right? But having to deal with that and not realizing or knowing what it was almost like I wasn't out there.
Mm.
Because if you look at the stats, was I out there? You know what I'm saying? You see, like,
Yeah.
hey, he ain't really doing much, or I might not even been playing that much.
Yeah.
And maybe the coaches and people were asking, like, okay, what's going on with him? What's wrong with him? Right? But at the same time, am I gonna really tell you what's wrong with me? No, not at that point in time. At the end of the day, trust factor is huge when it comes to the players, right? And not a lot of players want to go to a psychiatrist or a person
Yeah.
in the facility because they feel like, well, they might know that I'm going to seek help and they might use it against me.
Yeah.
So those things I was thinking the whole time until I got to a point where I had no choice.
Mm. You know, if you had been in a smaller market, let's say like a Buffalo, Cincinnati, or Green Bay, maybe the pressure may not have weighed so heavily on you, but you were in one of the largest markets in the NFL when you were in Philadelphia. And, and I think you can openly admit in many cases, because I was in that locker room, a lot of the interviews with you were more negative than positive. And when you think about the volume of microphones thrust in your face, asking you all these questions, and you're trying to give the right answer, the corporate answer, to not bring
Hmm.
any more negative criticism towards you, plus you're dealing with this behind the scenes that nobody knows about, man, you must have felt like a caged animal in a lot of ways.
Yeah, sometimes I definitely did. It was a hard thing to deal with. A lot of us deal with it. Everybody deals with it differently, right? Some people can handle it. Some people have a hard time handling it. I'm okay admitting that I had a hard time handling it. It's all
Yeah.
right. But see, me handling it the way that I did, when you have first rounders now, right? I could teach them. I could tell them what to expect, what to look for, how it's going to be. And it's okay to not have all the answers. You know what I mean? And
Yep.
so your play, at the end of the day, your play and what you do is how you extend your career. And
Yep.
that's all I was trying to focus on. But I didn't realize that in order to focus on that, the mental has to come first. We always do everything backwards.
Yeah.
We focus on the physical, physical, physical. Everything is physical, right? But how can I be the best mentally physical or mental person that I could possibly be if I'm not taking care of that?
Mm.
So that's the thing. It's so hard to get through at the time, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I'm here standing for all of the athletes who possibly will go through that transition period where it's hard. They may not be playing well or playing the best that they want. Now you have a person who can help you along your way, who can talk to you. Because also I'm a life coach too as well. I've talked to many of players who are playing right now, but then also who are retired. How am I going to take the helmet off and
Mm.
become human again? Right? It's a whole lot of things that the players go through that needs to be said or they need to be helped with.
Mm. You mentioned some names a short while ago in our conversation. Brian Dawkins, Lane Johnson, Brandon Brooks, synonymous with all fighting daily and winning with mental health issues. How elated are you that guys like that are using their platforms to make more and more people every day aware of how you can combat and win against depression and anxiety?
It's amazing. It's amazing that Lane and Brandon was talking about it because the more that they talk about it, the more athletes will understand that they can be vulnerable enough to do the same thing. Especially when you have guys who are still playing. And I think Brandon played 10 years. I mean, that is commendable to still go with what you went through
Yeah.
and able to finish what you started, right? And the same thing with Lane, right? He went through his little small battle, but he was able to come back and be better than he was. That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
And it was the same thing with me. Even though after I walked away, I signed back with the Redskins at the time at the end of the year, and I was able to finish out the season of
Hmm.
what I started, right? And even though I got cut the next year, I felt like that was probably the best camp that I ever had,
Mm.
being a football player and actually taking on my mental health in the way that I did. I actually made it first, and it made me so much of a better football player. And even when it ended, I knew what my purpose was because after I walked away, it was a lot of guys in that Seattle Seahawks locker room that came up to me and was telling me, man, that takes guts to do. Hey, man, I was dealing with this 2 weeks ago. So
Mm,
right then and there, I knew that my calling was so much more bigger than myself.
mm. That's unbelievable, man. When you look at it today, in some ways, do you kind of kick yourself saying, "Man, I wish I had been more open about this earlier in my career"?
Sometimes,
Yeah.
you know, but everything happens for a reason, right? I'm a true believer in that. Um, the way it happened is how I continue to tell my testimony today. It's how I continue to help all athletes, whether you are a youth, college, or the pros, right? If I didn't have the life that I had, or if the things didn't happen to me in the way that it did,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to push them towards their mental health journey as well, right? I wouldn't have a story to tell. And I think that's one of the most important things. So I don't regret anything that happened. Sometimes I think about it and like, man, if I would have spoke up sooner, maybe it would have been different. But maybe it wouldn't have,
Mm,
right? Maybe it wouldn't have changed anything,
mm.
right? Because we don't know what would have happened if I would have said, hey, but I do know, on my scouting report and on what was said about me was more so mental related, right? So I know the organization knew that I had some type of issue or some type of anxiety and stuff in the past as well.
We are talking with former Eagles first round pick Marcus Smith, a powerful, open, candid conversation about what he's gone through as a professional athlete and as a human being. We're going to step aside for just a moment. More coming up on this edition of Gun on One. Hey, everybody, listen up. When your money's on the line, choose a trusted sports book that gives you the tools to win, like MyBookie. You see, in MyBookie, it doesn't matter if your team is up or your team is down. You can easily cash out or bet the game live to come out on the winning side. Use MyBookie for daily odds boost, same game parlays, and take advantage of huge prize pool contests. Plus, MyBookie has a no strings attached cash bonus that lets you deposit and withdraw real quick. Now, just use the promo code GUNN, it's all caps, GUNN, GUNN, on your first deposit and receive up to $200 in cash. That's right, $200 in cash. That's promo code GUNN, all caps, GUNN, to claim your own cash bonus right now. Now, try the MyBookie money bag also to grab a potential Super Bowl frontrunner at long shot odds. Plus 38,000 on the Chiefs and the Eagles. You got to be kidding me. You won't find odds like that anywhere else. You can bet anything, anywhere, anytime, only with MyBookie.
Hey, it's Jeff Mosher. I love the fall because football's back, but it's also my busiest season. Between work, kids going back to school, youth sports and activities, there's just not enough time, especially to make a good home-cooked meal. That's why I love HelloFresh. They deliver farm-fresh food with pre-proportioned ingredients and seasonal recipes right to my doorstep. No more wasting time at the grocery store because America's #1 meal kit helps make home cooking easy, efficient, and affordable. We don't waste time researching new recipes and planning meals. With HelloFresh, the shopping's already done. The perfect amount of ingredients arrive with step-by-step recipe cards. How efficient is that? Plus, HelloFresh saves you time and money. HelloFresh is 25% less expensive than takeout, so you'll get a home-cooked meal without digging deep into your wallet. Don't forget about taste and selection. HelloFresh makes food for meat lovers, seafood lovers, vegetarians, and those who love variety. My personal favorites are the spicy Creole stew and pecan crusted trout, two dinners my whole family enjoyed, and we actually had time to sit down together and eat at the table. Go to HelloFresh.com/50Eagles and use the code 50Eagles for 50% off plus free shipping. That's HelloFresh.com/50Eagles. Use that code 50Eagles for 50% off plus free shipping. Act now for America's #1 meal kit.
We're back with former Eagles first round pick Marcus Smith, and Marcus will pick up the conversation. And let me ask you this. What type of athlete do you think you would have been had you not had to deal with the depression and anxiety?
That's a good question
Hmm.
because I felt like I was a great athlete.
Yeah.
I was great at everything that I did, right? It's a reason why I was drafted in the 26th pick, right?
Mhm.
Now, I may not have lived up to the standards of what everybody else put for me, right? I still played 5 to 6 years, but to me, what I've came accustomed to and what happened, I was a role player,
Yeah.
right? I may have not been the first rounder that was starting, right? But I ended up being a role player. So to me, I felt like that I was happy with that, right? And if anxiety and depression wasn't there, I don't know where I would be. You know
Mm.
what I mean? I don't know how it would have been, because anxiety kind of is with everybody. We all deal with it at some point,
Yep.
right? All athletes get that first game jitters or that feeling of like, man, I have to perform in order to extend my career. I have to make plays in order to get in the coach's good graces
Uh,
for me to continue my career and be paid at the end of the day, right? So I can solidify my family. That right there is a lot in itself for a person to think about,
mm,
right? So a lot of decisions come from, hey, I need to make sure that I'm doing what I need to do.
mhm.
It can't be anything mental health related because if it's mental health, I feel like this could be used against me.
Yeah.
So you will have more players, maybe 90% of the players, not say anything because only 15 to 20 players, right, are solidified. Everybody else contracts are expendable.
Mm.
So you're just not gonna go in there and say, hey, I'm dealing with this. It's just not gonna happen.
Well, in your best guesstimate, what percentage do you think NFL players of today are dealing with depression and anxiety that don't even talk about it?
95%.
95. You think the percentage is that high?
Yeah,
Wow.
because I deal with a lot of players. I've been around a lot of players that, well, if you think about it, when you're done playing and you're trying to find your identity, a lot of that comes before you are finished, right? And you got to think about 53 people on a roster,
Hmm.
right? You have 53 people on a roster. How many of those people are playing for the next year?
Hmm.
So the stress and the worry is very high, but to perform, right? So
Yeah.
that's more than half of the team. But at the same time, I went to a facility, APN. It's called All Points North,
Yeah.
and I've had to enter in there. And I was there for 30 days. I was with other players who played along the league at different ages. It was like 13 or 14 of us, and we have all similar stories, right? And there are players that go through there, and I send players there after the season. But a lot of things that they deal with that they haven't structured in their minds yet have happened while they're playing. Even when it comes to trauma, right? Seeing a player get hurt, that is traumatic to us.
Mm.
But normally, what we do is we push the ball up and we keep going. We haven't really even had time to process someone getting hurt on a football field,
Mm.
right? So it's all that compiled in one. So I would say a lot, 95% may be a little bit steep, but I would say more than half of players for sure.
Wow. As we sit here on this podcast, where are you with your depression and anxiety? Do you have it under control? Is it in the rear view mirror, or is it a day-to-day struggle still?
Well, for me, it's a journey, right? Days are better than others. I still have my days, but it's nowhere near as it used to be because I have a therapist that I talk to every week,
Mhm.
right? To help me get through my week and to talk about some of the things that I deal with when it comes to family.
Yeah.
Being in the mental health space is exhausting
Mm.
because I'm continuously telling my story, right? I'm trying to free myself every time I speak. It's heavy, right? And it's heavy for other people too as well. So I would say, man, I am so much better than I was before. But because I have the tools around me, I have my team around me, the team of people that help me navigate mentally. I feel like, it's a great thing to have. And I wish that other players have that too as well,
So
even
you,
while they're playing.
yeah, so you start the Circle of M Foundation. What led to this?
So after my little dealing in Seattle, as we talked about,
Yeah.
right, what led to that was when the players started to come up to me in the locker room and started to tell me a little bit about they were dealing with the same thing like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And these are not your average players. Like these are players still playing today who are doing really well that you would never think are going through that, right? And so that's what led me to find out who I was through therapy, and then I found out what my purpose was, in which starting the Circle of M is to unmask the feelings that cause anxiety, depression in
Mm,
athletes, right? So I started that to bring awareness.
mm,
So I've been going on media runs since 2020 to continue to bring awareness to mental health in sports, period. Right. And now we're getting to the point where we are starting to become solution based. I was just with the Senate yesterday at the bipartisan mental health caucus speaking before the Senate so they can release funds to give out to the community for mental health.
mm.
So this is what I'm doing now so we can continue to combat those issues because I think a therapist actually told us 2 days ago that the percentage is getting higher as far as young black boys at 10 years old who are committing suicide. So it starts early. And so we have to be able to get ahead of that so we can help these boys and girls.
When you talk to athletes, what's your constant message to them in terms of how to deal with the struggles?
My constant message to them is success is not a destination, it's a mindset. So oftentimes as athletes, we think success is somewhere that we have to get, that we have to go, right? Success is like, I got to get a new contract. Success is like, oh, I got to get a new house, right? But then you realize that materialistic things fade away.
Mhm.
So you have to understand that your success is tied to a lot of the pain and the struggle and the things that you deal with along the way to get to your purpose and your destiny. That is true success. So when you do hit a bump, when you do go through certain things, right? It's important for you to have a team around you that can help you get over that hurdle, right? It may be a life coach, maybe a therapist, it may be a counselor, it may be a teammate, right? It may be your player development guy. Don't be afraid to talk to those people, right? Because you feel like they're going to hold it against you or anything like that, right? You have to get it out in the atmosphere at some point. So I always tell them that, man, you have to walk your own journey. Your race is your race, and you're not competing with anybody but yourself.
NFL teams talk about how they feel they're doing a better job of making players in their organization aware of what to look for now when it comes to mental health issues, um, and how to handle the fame, the money, lack of privacy, and even being in the constant fishbowl of social media. Do you think the NFL across the board is doing enough, or could they do an even better job?
I think they could do more
Okay.
if we're being honest here,
Okay.
right? I think the NFL is doing a lot better talking about mental health, but it's so much deeper than the surface, right? Do we actually get to know the players and who they are, right? Do we actually get to see them as humans and not just, hey, I got a player that looks just like you, that can play just like you, that can run just like you, right? And when your time is up, I'm just going to bring somebody else in, right? That's the nature of the league. It's like a revolving door,
Yeah.
right? So at the end of the day, it's so much bigger than surface level. We can talk about mental health all day, right? We can have clinicians on 32 NFL teams. That's great, right? But it doesn't mean anything if the players are not actually seeking and going to the clinician, right? And so I know players that seek therapy outside of the facility, but you want them to be able to be comfortable enough to be able to go to the facility and seek the help that they need. But it's a barrier that they have to cross, and I just think that the NFL has to be, instead of reacting, they have to be ahead of it. Period. They have to know what's going on with the players. You know what I mean?
Do you have even bigger aspirations for Circle of M? Do you want to take it to another plateau? And if so, what is it?
Well, for our goal was to continue to talk about this. Secondly, was to create solutions,
Okay.
right? So I created a program that is an online program where it's a Circle of M, where you get the chance and opportunity for 8 weeks to dive in to a roundtable discussion. I bring different NFL players on to speak about their struggles. I started working with a brain therapist who she specializes in speech for the brain, because a lot of football players, and we talk about CTE, we talk about all those things. It's ways to combat CTE early, right? But that's something that you don't hear, or the people are not talking about. But that coincides with mental health too, as well, especially in football players. So I try to bring that to the forefront without any judgment or anything, because I'm not trying to do. I'm not trying to not make you play, right? Because at the end of the day, football. We can't stop you from playing, but we can minimize your risk. We can minimize some of the things that you go through, right? And some of the things that NFL players go through when we're done playing is memory loss. It's word finding. It's having trouble processing their thoughts and the things that they want to say, right? All of that, learning what I know, being in this space, all of that is related to, quote unquote, what you guys call CTE. So that's kind of where we are now, bringing those type of people in, talking about mental health to the athletes, giving the education to them, whether it's high school, college, or the pros. And the ultimate goal is to have a facility strictly for athletes. That's what I'm working on right now.
How many players would you say your foundation is helping right now?
I would say we have roughly 10, 15 total,
Okay.
like ongoing, who are committed.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And players call me all the time to kind of get my insight on things, on what they should do, how they should go about things when it comes to their mental health, people that I know that could possibly help them. Do I know therapists that maybe are African American, right? Because some players want a therapist that looks like them, who maybe they feel like can relate. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But we're trying to grow even the more, just to get more guys to just talk about it. You know, I want to save as many guys as I can. I don't want players to continue to go without talking about something. Like, you got to think, man. Some of these players, I'm gonna say some of us players, because I used to be a player, but some of us players, man, they come from their background, man. I mean, it's not, them going home is probably not a good idea,
Mm.
right? So how do you get through that, right?
Mm.
It's very hard. It's hard. So just being a voice for them and being a backbone for them, that's all I can ask for, and I just try to help them as much as I can.
The game of football has brought you a lot of joy, but it's also brought you a lot of heartache. The joy of making it, being one of those small few percentage to make it to the National Football League, make a good living financially, but also the pressure impacts that also being on that NFL pedestal puts you on. Do you watch college and pro football now, or do you stay away from it altogether?
Man, I watch it like how I did when I was playing. I
Okay.
love the game, man. Period. Right? I love the game. That's never gonna change, man. Football was a sport that I grew up playing since I was 5 years old. I'm watching college, I'm watching NFL Sundays. Sundays I'm on the couch
Yeah.
watching all day. I'm watching the Eagles, man, because guess what? BG is a good brother of mine
Yeah.
who helped me tremendously. So
Yeah.
I want to see him do well. I want to see the Eagles do well. You know what I mean? So football is always going to be something that, I know my son is probably going to play,
Yeah.
obviously, or want to play. But my duty to him is to make sure that he understands the game, knows how to play the game, right? And knows how to be depending on what position that he wants to play. I have to make sure that he's mentally intact before he plays this barbaric sport that we know to be called football.
You talked about how you still keep in touch with Brandon Graham. Do you keep in touch with other entities in Eagles organization, from your playing days, whether it's front office personnel, training staff, or even Chip Kelly, who drafted you?
I have not. I have not talked to anybody upstairs ever since I was released. I would like to though. I really feel like that I could help the players in some capacity, right? Uh, but I haven't, besides BG or Trent, Cole, some of my teammates that I played with in the past, like Rodney McLeod, but he
Yeah.
plays with the Browns now.
Mhm.
Uh, I think that it would be dope to be able to talk to those guys, but I haven't talked to them or ran past them at all. I ran past actually some reporters at the Super Bowl, of
Yeah.
course, but
Yeah.
that was it.
Um, you look at where you are in life right now. Final question to you. You look at the journey you're on. It has its highs, it has its lows. Do you have an inner peace now that you may not have had 5, 10 years ago?
Almost definitely. My inner peace is my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, man. Even being a man of God, then right, God oftentimes sends people in your life to help you get over some of the
Right.
pain that you deal with. We have to realize too that some of the traumas and the things that we go through are passed down to us, right? Some things that our parents had never addressed, some things that our ancestors had never addressed,
Yeah.
right? They couldn't talk or say anything. Being a slave, you couldn't talk or say anything. You would get killed or you would get your foot chopped off or something would happen to you, right? That's naturally on us as men and women,
Mhm.
right? So, me where I am right now, I can't thank God enough for
Mm.
allowing me to be where I am, to be able to help as many as people as I can and be able to talk to you. Like, I'm
Yeah,
happy that I'm here, right? Because there could have been a point that I wasn't.
that's right.
So I'm forever grateful that I'm in this position.
And I can speak for a lot of people. So are we, that you're still here and in the position that you are. Marcus Smith, former Eagles first round pick. It's been a minute since we had a chance to cross paths and chop it up, but man, it's been a pleasure. And keep doing what you're doing. Keep putting yourself out there to help so many who, in a lot of cases, don't know how to get help, even in this day and age we live in. Man, thank you for giving Gun on One some time, man.
Man, I appreciate you guys for having me on your show, man. Appreciate it.
All right. That's going to wrap up this edition of Gun on One. It is powered by the Inside the Birds Network and sponsored by my bookie. For Marcus Smith, I'm Derrick Gunn. Thanks for watching and listening in. We'll talk to you next time.